The president just posted his thought on the Supreme Court ruling over the Voting Rights Act, where he says today's 6-3 Supreme Court decision in the Calais case is a big win for equal protection under the law, as it returns the Voting Rights Act to its original intent, which was to protect against intentional racial discrimination.
The justices have issued a major Voting Rights Act decision that's going to affect the midterm elections and elections from here on out. It makes it harder for blacks and Latinos to challenge voting maps and to say that their power has been diluted in the way a voting map has been drawn. What the conservative majority has done in this 6-3 decision is to really change the terms of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Justice Sam Alito read his statement for the majority, and as he was finishing up, he said, "Do not listen to what the dissenters say. It's really not this bad." But when Justice Elena Kagan spoke for the three liberals, she said, "It is bad."
Thank you to brilliant Justice Samuel Alito for authoring this important and appropriate opinion. Let me show you how fast Republicans are moving on this. And before the ink even dried on the decision, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who is running for governor in my home state of Tennessee, has already pushed out new congressional maps that would heavily favor Republicans and got rid of the blue dots in this red state that have large African American populations to ensure that African Americans have no representation in Congress.
And I need you to understand what actually happened, because the way they're going to frame this is going to make it sound like a legal technicality, and it definitely is not. Because today, in a 6-3 ruling, the conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court effectively gutted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. You see, Justice Samuel Alito, writing for the majority, said that the Voting Rights Act was designed to enforce the Constitution, not collide with it. And what he means by that is drawing a district to make sure black voters can actually elect someone who represents them is now, according to this court, a form of racial discrimination.
No, see, the question that you need to be asking yourself is, why would they do this? Why would they do this if voting didn't pose a threat to them? Why would they do this? The popular narrative, the mythology around voting is that it doesn't work and both sides are the same. You're just voting for the lesser of two evils and blah, 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 blah. If that's all fucking true, why would they work this hard to disrupt the fucking system?
Greetings, my BPPN family. Welcome to Bold Perspectives Network. I'm Mr. Red. Now, I wanted to play those clips because I wanted to be able to give you all context on this voting rights decision by SCOTUS. I'll be honest, I really didn't know what to come on here and say because I've said a lot of the things that needed to be said in multiple videos. I have challenged some of your comments down below saying that it doesn't matter who we vote for. We should be voting third party. Democrats are just as bad as Republicans. And I say to you, I know some of you who say that are well-meaning, but you have to ask yourself the question that the young man said earlier. Why would they do this if voting didn't matter? I want you all to hear a few more things. I want you to hear a few more clips. I want you to know some of the history. And then I'm going to let you know my feelings, thoughts, and opinions on this, as I always have. This is not easy to talk about because we're watching America erode right before us, and we knew it. We knew it when we saw Project 2025, and now we're seeing it come to fruition. We have much to discuss. Let's strap in. Let's get after it.
There seems to be a lot of confusion when it comes to the Supreme Court's decision today in the Louisiana v. Calais case. And I just want to break it down to make sure we're on the same page, okay? Black people, you cannot combat racism because that's racist. Ah, yes. And if you bring up racism to us to make us accountable, that's also racist and unconstitutional. Yeah. We don't care that you represent the majority of a district and you want representation, because how dare you want representation even though you're paying taxes? That's racist. Because what about the white people? Even though they make up more than 58% of this country's population, and the same for Louisiana's population, what about them and their representation? Even though they already represent the majority, how dare you bring up racism? okay? Because that's racist and unconstitutional. And never mind how this is going to affect tons of other congressional seats because they're already gerrymandering the hell out of all of these states, okay? Focus. Black people, stop being racist, okay? And if you bring up racism or try to combat racism, you're a racist, that's unconstitutional, and we don't have that in our country.
See, back in 2022, federal courts found that Louisiana's congressional map was likely violating the Voting Rights Act because black voters, who make up about a third of that state's population, only had real representation in 1 out of 6 districts. So Louisiana redrew the map to include a second majority black district, and then a group of non-black voters sued and said that the map relied too heavily on race. And today, the Supreme Court agreed with them.
We can talk about what the court did, the 6-3 conservative majority with the 3 Trump appointees all siding with Justice Alito in striking down this key provision of the Voting Rights Act. Oh, they say they're not doing that. After the Civil War, when slaves were freed, there was a push by radical Republicans, the progressives of their day, both black and white, to make that freedom real equality. There were 3 amendments passed to the Constitution, 13th, 14th, and 15th, that guaranteed equal protection under the law and voting rights. And between 1869 and 1877, a remarkable thing happened, particularly in the U.S. South. Black voting registration achieved parity with white voting registration. Black and white voters voting at the same rates. Black elected representatives in state legislatures, state senates, in Congress, in the United States Senate. You had multiracial democracy for about 8 years. And then a whole bunch of things happened. Union troops left the South. White politicians kind of schemed. And there was a wave of white supremacist violence from the KKK that basically rolled back all those gains. What's crucial to understand is it was the U.S. Supreme Court, the white U.S. Supreme Court, that essentially sided with the white supremacists of the South and facilitated the rolling back of what was multiracial democracy in the South, leading to the Jim Crow era. By the 1910s and 20s, there's basically no registered black voters in the South. There's no black elected representatives, more or less. It is now one-party white supremacist rule. And that is thanks to the U.S. Supreme Court that gutted the provisions of the U.S. Constitution that hundreds of thousands of Union troops had fought and died to put into the U.S. Constitution. It was not until 1965, the Voting Rights Act, that true multiracial democracy returns to the U.S. Again, and it was a return. And it took 90 years, more or less, to get it back. And then over the last 60 years, with the Voting Rights Act in place, we have seen black and white voter turnout and registration achieve parity, an unprecedented boom of black elected representatives, particularly true in the South, where the majority of black African Americans still live. And now the Supreme Court is basically doing the same thing they did in the late 19th century, in that ignominious period of Plessy v. Ferguson and other decisions, in which they essentially rubber stamped white supremacy. That is what they run the risk of doing today. And if there's any hope in the story, and it's a tough day, the hope in the story is the court did this once before. The powers that be that wanted to chase black folks out of full participation in American democracy were temporarily victorious, but ultimately they lost. The story's not over.
Now, Chris Hayes says that the story is not over, and maybe he's right, but did he even hear himself about the timelines that he gave? The story may not be over, but look how long it took for black people and white people voting parity to come back. There was another 90 years of Jim Crow era laws. And we thought we had gotten past that. Some people thought we had got past that. And always, 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 the true villains of the story find a way to essentially be villains again. Was a tough day. This is a tough day because we all saw this coming. Black people, sensible black people saw this coming. Because I'm going to tell y'all, when I saw Clarence Thomas's face up there, looking like Steven from Django Unchained, or, what's that one from the Boondocks? I can't even think of his damn name right now. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Looking like that damn dude. And honestly, it's hard not to feel like this court isn't compromised, because you undo that many years of precedent, 60 years. I'm not even 60 years old. To undo those things we have grown up with, that we were born into, thinking that we had a chance. They let us know y'all ain't shit. And so it's important that going forward, that we don't be naive and say that our vote doesn't matter. We also need to make sure that we're not being naive and think that we can go ahead and destroy the system through a third party. All we're going to do is entrench the powers of the people who did this. They want us to give up. They want us to feel hopeless. And so again, I still believe that we have to use the vehicles that are already there in order to affect change. And it had to have been working for them to have tried to carry this out.
For the very first time, all the polling that we've done in Voto Latino, the three top issues have been now consecutively: politics keep me up at night, affordability is a problem, and they specifically say Donald Trump is a problem. We have never in our 20 years history ever had any public survey that includes Latinos, independent white voters, name a president by name as what's keeping you up at night. And it does speak to this idea that not only is the social contract broken, but he is creating real anxiety where people feel like they can't come back. And if you're like saying, you know, what is our red alert? And I'm glad you're having Stacey Abrams on later on. Our red alert is that he knows he's losing. And so he's going to try to do every single thing to cheat at the ballot box, whether we're talking about the SAVE Act, whether we're talking about deploying ICE at polling booths, or what happens if we get a scenario that we saw in Arizona with Grijalva, who was not seated for a long time. So we actually have to start thinking about, even if we win en masse, we have to start preparing the American public that we want to understand how are we going to seat the people that we have won.
Now, I told you all that this was going to be tough regardless. Latinos, Latinas, predominantly Latino men, Hispanic men voted for Trump in a majority. And again, we've already talked about that in this channel. So I'm not going to rehash that. But the point is, for them to say that these are the things keeping them up at night, where y'all been at? This is exactly what black people were saying. We knew that this was always a possibility or a consequence. We now have to look after ourselves because we can't trust a lot of you all. We can't trust a lot of your groups. Your judgment has been compromised. We're talking about a man who was already looking to entrench power. But imagine, this is a man, by all standards, would have gone to jail for the rest of his life had it not been winning the presidency, or should I say, having the presidency rigged in his favor. I'm sorry, I still believe that, even though you hear me talk like everything was normal. Okay, so I don't want y'all to think I don't believe that, but I have to pick a lane in order to make the points. We have to fight. We have to fight for our rights, because I'm telling you, they're telling us not to worry about it. It's just not that big of a deal of a decision. Yet you already see these states already trying to change the laws. We have to be prepared that this man is going to do whatever it takes to not get out of power. And not just him. The people that are around him are going to be equally complicit in making sure that he stays in power because of their corruption, because of their insider trading. If they don't support him, they're all going to jail. They would all go to jail under normal circumstances. So they are going to help him. I need everyone to keep that in mind as we go forward.
Why would they work this hard to disrupt the fucking system? Why would they fuck up a good thing? If it only benefited them, why would they be the ones that initiated fucking it up? Unless it poses a threat to them. Unless it poses a threat to their power, their position, their station. They know that the more of us that vote, the less power they can wield. So they're trying to get less of us to fucking vote. And you guys are helping them whenever you fucking say, oh, well, voting doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, why are they so sure you can use it as a weapon? If it doesn't matter, why are they so afraid of you voting? If you voting doesn't matter, Why are they afraid that you're going to vote?
I'm not going to lie. It was hard making this video, and I'm sorry if I don't get all my points out. This is a crushing defeat. This is crushing for everything that we have been talking about, fighting for, and standing for. I have a few things that I do have to say, and please be patient with me. The first is, I agree with that young man. If your vote didn't matter, why would they do this? Someone believes that your vote matters. I'm going to tell you exactly what I've been saying on this channel, and I'm going to stand 10 toes down on it, is that our forefathers and ancestors fought, died, bled so that you have a right to vote. Even when it didn't matter for them, they did it. So all of you people that say it doesn't matter, they're the same, I don't want to hear that shit. We vote out everybody who is a part of the go along, get along gang. And we need to start voting at our local levels. We need to start doing the research about our local representatives, not because their name is a certain way or they look pretty or they say some stuff on TV. We actually need to start doing the research. And in a country where the reading level is at a 6th grade level, we got some problems. This is just one of the few steps of many steps that they're going to take to enslave us all. It's that bad. Why do you think they're trying to, make all these AI data centers? These AI data centers are going to be used to control every aspect of our lives. They know that we are the guardians. They know that we're the ones who have the common sense to resist this. We need to start thinking of a new plan. And I'll be honest, that's kind of why I'm a little hesitant or I'm a little reserved on my words. Because right now in my head, I'm like, should I fucking leave? Should I leave? And then when I think about leaving, I start thinking about, I have family here. I can't just leave my family. So what other choice do I have but to do what the people before us did? And that's to fight and to resist. Because I didn't serve as long as I did in the military to have this dictator-ass outcome that we're seeing right now. This is antithetical to everything that I was taught and that I believe and that I feel. Some of y'all need to wake the fuck up before it's too late. Stay vigilant, stay engaged, stay revolutionary.